Welcome to She Sells Radio. I am so excited for today's conversation with you, which is very much inspired by, I would say, what's been going on in my own life recently, and also a lot of behind the scenes client conversations I've been having, which is all about knowing and honoring the season that you're in your sales, in your career, in your life. And I'll take you back a little bit here. I don't know if you can relate to this, but for me, when I was first coming up in my career, so I started off in corporate media sales, super embarrassing. Well, maybe not embarrassing, but just super probably not on brand for today. My first corporate job was selling yellow pages. You may not even know what those are, and that is okay if you don't. It's kind of like pre-Google. Google was starting to be a thing. We're talking like early 2000s here. So, wow, that makes, no, it was 2000. I'm going to give myself a little credit. 2010? I don't know. Anyway, it's been a bit. It started off there, then went into global, media sales and online marketing and all of that. But I remember when I was in those roles, and I was, a top sales producer, I always did really well, but I would be in constant anxiety about needing to close something every single day in order to feel like I was doing well. And it's not to say that closing more sales is not a good thing, because as long as it's in alignment with what the client needs and it's a true service to them, absolutely, the more sales, the better. I'm all about that. But there was no regard on my part, and I was kind of learning this and navigating this, and it's no knock on the leadership I was working for, but this really wasn't part of the conversation, at least not that I was hearing, that there are seasons to things and that there's a life cycle of a relationship, and there's times when we're planting seeds and there's times when we're harvesting. And I think so much of our corporate culture is very much, and this is some of what I teach in time management for women, much of our corporate world runs on a 24-hour cycle, right? Which makes sense. It's not that surprising. Men's hormone levels cycle every 24 hours. So they pretty much show up the same way most days and are pretty cyclical. Like you can you know what you're going to get every day. Well, as women, our hormones cycle every 30 days, roughly. And we're on a different schedule than they are. So this isn't even just to say knowing the season that you're in terms of season of the month, even though I think that's something that makes a huge difference when we get that as women, to know that there's a time of the month that's better for building relationships. There's a time of the month that's better for inward work. And all of that is another episode for another day. But then knowing outside of that, if we continuously just breathed out, we would never take in anything new. We would never take in fresh oxygen and be able to replenish. If the tide just kept coming in, there would be a flood. And so I think my own experience earlier on in my business and sales and career journey was that it was like it had to always be summer for me to be doing well. It had to always be day. I had to always be, the mantra, right? Always be closing. Again, I'm not against closing. I'm a huge fan of closing. I teach closing. I like closing deals. I like all of that. And when we do it without the context that there is a season for everything, and we want to know what season we're in, and we think that there's something wrong if we're not, doing bigger and bigger and bigger every single day without honoring that there's a cycle to things. I think we set ourselves up for some really unhealthy expectations. We set ourselves up for a lot of pressure, and pressure dilutes your power in almost every circumstance. And we set ourselves up for, I don't want to use the word failure because I don't really believe in failure, but for a tough go of it, right? And so I wanted to talk today about knowing the season you're in, because the more that you can be in touch with the season that you're in and work with it instead of against it, and know that just like there's seasons in the natural world, there's business seasons, there's sales seasons, there's life seasons. And the more we can get out of comparison with somebody else's and get in attunement and alignment with our own, the happier, more productive, and more successful we'll be as well. And so, the original reason why I thought I should record this episode is I've been sharing behind the scenes on Instagram. If we're not connected on Instagram, I'm at Elise Archer. I'd love to connect with you there. But I've been sharing behind the scenes for some reason lately when we go for these big RV trips, which we've been doing recently. I feel like I feel inspired to put on my programmer hat and work on some behind the scenes automations and systems to build out in our business. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the long ride. Maybe it's something else. I don't know, but that's what I've been enjoying doing for parts of those rides. So I've just been sharing like behind the scenes. We use something called Keep, formerly Infusionsoft. It's, AKA Confusionsoft. It can be quite clunky to figure out how to use. So I'm learning this, I'm navigating this because our team is just working on so many things right now. So I'm going to jump in and work on this because it needs to be built. And I've had clients reach out to me saying should I be doing that? Should I be focusing on putting those systems in place? Many of my clients are entrepreneurs. Some of them are salespeople, but especially the ones who are entrepreneurs have been should I be doing that in my business right now? And my answer has been, it depends. It depends. And I think the first point I want to make here is that just because you see someone who you think is, you admire, or they're where you want to be financially, career-wise, et cetera, and you see them on Instagram or you see them on LinkedIn doing something specific to grow their sales or their business, it doesn't mean it should be an automatic yes for you. We want to always check in with the context of what's the season that they're in. So for us as a season, as a company, we are scaling She Sells way beyond the Elise Archer brand. And part of what I'm creating this year, which I'm beyond excited about, is a consultant training program. My vision with this company and with this brand is that we're going into companies all around the world and delivering this training and help it. We've got phenomenal programs, phenomenal results with our clients. And I can't, nor do I want to do it all on my own. And part of the vision is to create just this beautiful, almost plug and play program that it will be most likely specifically women to start, but I'm very open to, to anyone. It's who can come in and plug in and want to go out and sell this too, and deliver this material and teach this material and make beautiful livings and lives off of it. So that's what I'm building right now. And a lot of that is getting stuff out of Elise's head, getting processes out of my head, getting things that we did manually to scale the company to where we've scaled it so far, and getting everything really systematized so that when we start bringing in other consultants, they can literally plug and play with this. So that's the context of a lot of what we're doing behind the scenes. And by the way, if you're interested in learning more, if you're interested in applying for that program, the consultant certification, once it's ready, you can email elise@elisearcher.com. Our goal is to launch at Q3 of this year. So send me an email and we can send you more information as soon as it's ready. But that's what we're doing. And so I've had a lot of clients reach out to me who are, maybe they're scaling from 6 to 7, or they don't have that vision for right now. And it's should I be doing this? And my answer has generally been no. Not to say that there can't be things that we get out of your head and processes that we get out of your head that are going to free you up energetically to be able to be more present with your clients or more present with your family, and that wouldn't be a great thing regardless of the season that you're in. But do you need to build out and scope out systems to the extent that I'm doing right now? Probably not. So it's all about the context. And I think the answer, what I would do is I would really tune in. And this is the value of that morning time. This is the value of checking in with yourself. This is the value of space and silence and not scrolling Instagram endlessly when you're, sometimes that's the default program, right? You sit down to, I don't know, go to the bathroom or do something else. It's boom, here's Instagram, right? It's incredible how much Instagram people scroll from the toilet. So Anyway, like that, if that's the default program, you're immediately going to go into comparison. You're immediately going to say, oh, should I be doing that? If you don't know what season you're in, it's so easy to get lost by looking at what other people are doing. And if they are making more money than you, or they have more followers, or they seem more successful, saying, well, that's what I should be doing too. Not necessarily. Tune in. What's the season you're in? Get quiet. Like, stop the scrolling. I mean, that's just there's nothing valuable that's going to come out of that. And as soon as I notice that my program is to start doing it, I literally shut it down and I stop. Get connected, spend that time in the morning, go for a walk in nature, get clear on the vision and what it's about for you. And then you'll know what the season is that you're in. This is not a forever thing for me. Like, I know what we're building right now. This is a shorter term push that we're in right now to get all this completed so that we can really successfully bring in other people into this company. But it's not going to be a forever thing. And so it's knowing the season you're in. And here's something else I'll say in terms of knowing the season you're in. Just like there's 4 seasons in nature. There's, I think, generally, if we had to categorize it, there's me, and I haven't really thought about it this way, so I'm kind of thinking it out loud as I say it, but you can maybe say there's 4 seasons to life. There's certainly 4 seasons to our energy cycle, whether you're a man and that cycle's, throughout the day, throughout 24 hours, or as a woman, if that cycle's more every 30 days, but there's time where there's, winter, spring, summer, fall. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on what that means in terms of energy cycles today on the podcast, but winter, I want to pause on winter for a moment. Winter can feel like a hard one. And that you're in a winter if you felt like, maybe you feel like you don't have a lot of direction right now. Maybe it feels like things are very quiet. Maybe you just had a big accomplishment and now you're saying, what's next? Maybe you just had a big accomplishment, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you went for something and it didn't happen the way you thought it would. And now you're kind of like, what's next? Where am I? Right? You're in the inquiry, you're in the void. That can be the hardest one. But the key, and I'll actually speak to how to navigate that in a moment. The key is to know that nothing's wrong. Just like I opened up the episode by saying, I used to think there was something wrong if I wasn't closing more and more and more every day. Back in my corporate sales days, that doesn't take into account at all the seasonality of things. And it's the same with our seasons of life, right? And when you're in a winter, if we look at winter, in nature, it may look like there's not a lot going on. It may look like things are dead. There's a lot going on behind the surface. We have to have that winter to help things regenerate, to create the new again. So the key when you're in a winter is to know that nothing is really wrong, per se. Nothing is wrong. It's just a part of the natural process. And I'm going to switch up how I was going to present something to you. I want to speak to what I do in my life, when I feel like I'm in a winter. And this wasn't particularly a winter, but what I did in it is exactly what I would do in a winter season, or a quiet season, we could call it. So I don't know about you, the time of me recording this was a couple weeks ago, but let's say like early May, if you're listening to this in real time, I felt like there was like an energetic clog in the universe. I don't know any other way to say it, but I just gotten off a big push. I'd signed up like a chunk of new clients, had a lot of momentum rolling behind things. And it was like, for some reason, and we were looking for a new place. I'll speak to that in a moment. It was like, for some reason, stuff just felt kind of stuck. Like people's payment was getting sent to the wrong bank account. There was like just delays in responses with things. Literally, the culmination of it was we were in the RV this week when this was happening, and literally the tank got clogged. And it was like, okay, this is the pinnacle of the clog that this past week has felt like. And it just felt like a big fat clog. And I'm not going to lie, there were moments where I got frustrated. And there were moments where I was like, why is the stuff that I've been working on and creating, like why does it feel so clogged and so jammed up? And I don't know, I don't do a whole lot with, astrology. So maybe there was probably something going on, because I talked with clients who were experiencing the same thing. I talked with my mastermind partner who was experiencing the same thing. So there very well could have been something going on. But the key in that moment is whether you're in a season that feels like things are clogged and for some reason they're not pushing through, or maybe you're in a quiet season and it feels like I don't have anything to push through and I don't feel very clear on what that is. What I would do in that particular season is first just it's about acceptance. This is what it is. And there's nothing necessarily wrong either. And I think that's the importance of remembering, in nature, winter has a very significant purpose. It wouldn't be there if it didn't. And in those pause periods, in those moments where it feels like things slow down in our lives, those are there for a reason too. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. But the first thing I would do is I would get curious and I would just look at, is there any part I'm playing in this where this isn't necessary? So I would look at, is there something I felt intuitively guided to do? Is there an action I felt guided to take? Is there, in the sales world, is there outreach that I've been kind of avoiding because it feels uncomfortable? Well, guess what? That can create a slowdown that may not be a slowdown that was like necessary for your growth, right? But it was self-created because we procrastinated on doing those activities. But just checking in, is there anything that I have felt intuitively guided to do, or that I know I have not done my part on, that has created this slowdown? Oftentimes it's, we've gotten busy. We've stopped slowing down in the mornings. We've stopped slowing down to tune in, to meditate, to do our inner work. And so it's like, there literally has to be a pause. There has to be a slowdown at some point so that you can regroup. This is why, if people are just going, oftentimes they'll get sick or they'll have an injury because they're going in an almost unsustainable pace. So there will be a slowdown some way or somehow. So sometimes that's it. But sometimes it's not. And when I checked in, when this was going on in my life, it was like, I've honestly, I've been in alignment for the most part. I've been following the nudges. I've been taking stretchy action. I've done everything I know how to do in certain situations where things still feel clogged. So when that's the case, it's about acceptance. And it's about, I recently read the book, The Having. What a powerful book. And I think that practice that she speaks about of the having, of really looking at, what is everything I do have? And instead of focusing on what's not working, what's clogged, what's slowing down, et cetera, what's not good about this, you actually, you do the opposite. You stop and you look at, well, what do I have right now in this moment? And sometimes it's like, I have enough for today, or I have enough for this moment. And then you just do that again the next moment, and you do that again the next moment. And the more you fight against the season that you're in, the more you fight against the what's so of the situation, the bigger you make it. So it's really about that radical acceptance. And then we can start to shift things and shift the energy by focusing on what we have. And I find that oftentimes when we make that shift and we stop pushing against the season, and we actually say like, no, like I'm available to get the lesson. I'm available for the slowdown. I'm available for the pause. I'm available for this, because I know under the surface, there's regeneration, there's rebirth, there's growth that's going to be coming from this. There's nothing wrong. So let me accept this. Let me get the lesson, embrace the season. And the more that we do that, the faster we actually move out of it. And it doesn't have to be long. It took me maybe a day of like consciously doing that for it to feel like the floodgates opened back up and things were like boom, 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 boom. But I think if I hadn't consciously shifted into that, things would have felt clogged way longer than they needed to be. And yay, the RV unclogged as well. That was pretty exciting. It was like the universe being like, all right, I got you. We're flowing again. We're rolling again. There's some weird bathroom references in this episode. I'm just going to throw that out there. that was not the intention of this episode, but hey, natural cycles, right? So I think with knowing, wow, what an episode. I think with knowing what season you're in, you want to know how to structure your life according to the season that you're in as well. And so, I shared the season right now for me in business is about putting all these systems and structures in place so that we can expand beyond just the Elise personal brand and bring in some other amazing, amazing individuals. And continue to serve our clients better, continue to up level how we do that. Like those are really my priorities right now in second quarter for our company. And on the personal side, and in business too, actually, I also am very much in a season of growing relationships. And so I have shifted my schedule to be able to accommodate that. And I think this is part of the key with knowing the season you're in is the schedule that worked for you last quarter, last month, or even last week may not work for you going into this other season. So that's where it's so important to have that fluidity, that flexibility, that agility with what you're doing to be able to re-examine and say, okay, what's the right structure and schedule to support me for the season I'm in now? Do I need to shift client meetings? Do I need to block out a day? Like I've recently blocked Fridays on my calendar, which feels so good. We already had Tuesdays blocked for mommy and me with Jack. I've got an incredible new assistant, Lindsay, who's helping me with a bunch of this. And she, really helped me get things off my plate on Fridays too, that are more of like a CEO planning day. And that was for this season what we need. And I do intend to carry that Friday, Friday CEO day into as long as I possibly can, because I think that's important. That's so important for those of us who are leading companies. So for me, it's like, that's a forever thing. But that's part of the season. I didn't used to be in that season. Now I am. So the calendar's been adjusted accordingly. And so going back to the season of growing relationships, because we've got a little one, it's like things really get going in my life at 7 a.m. every day once he's up. And there's a lot that I desire to do before then to fill my cup and then also to grow these relationships. And so I should say 7:30 when he's up is usually more the time. So two things I've added into my life recently. One is a 6:30 to 7 a.m. connect time with my husband. So that's like a standing meeting / date for us in the mornings, just to connect, to see what the other needs, to plan the day, to just hang out like that. And that's been really, we notice now when we get off of that, because it makes a huge difference in our relationship. And then from 7 to 7:30, I've currently got a standing coaching session with one of my team members where I coach her. And so with that, like 6:30 is when I got to be on for my meetings for the day. And I desire a really spacious feeling morning routine that gives up to an hour for meditation, up to an hour for a workout. I love reading and journaling in the mornings, and that's a process for me too. And I remember I was talking to a woman last week, wonderful woman. She's one of my mentors. I worked with her more closely several years ago, but it was like 11 a.m. and she'd just gotten done with her workout. And I was like, part of me was like, oh man, that sounds really good. Like that feels really, that would be interesting to have my day structured like that. But I had to remind myself of the season that she's in versus the season that I'm in. So the season I'm in right now, if I want to have my workout, my morning routine, my shower, everything done in time for my 6:30 with my husband, I'm up at 3. And it's an early, like, I'm not gonna lie, it's an early morning. Now I aim to be in bed by 8. I would say more often I'm in bed by 9, which is still probably early for most people's standards. So that's something I'm working on is shifting that timing up a bit, but that's the season that I'm in right now. And her season is different. She doesn't have little kids. She's got a different business structure, all of that. And so that works for her. So I noticed myself starting to go into, oh, that sounds so nice. That I was like, that's the season. So it doesn't make sense to compare my season to hers because it's just different. It's just different. And then the final piece, I think, is just tying in with knowing knowing when to plant and when to sow. And I'm going to share, today's kind of like sharing some personal stories. So hopefully they help you and there's some good lessons you can pull. So if you've been following me on social or following behind the scenes, you will know that my husband, Jason, has been in the process of applying for, it's medical school, but it's called DO. So Doctor of Osteopathy. So it's like a more holistic school. And he and I are not fresh out of college. You know, we're mid to, I'll be upper 30s this year. And it's a different process. And he actually stopped work completely about a year ago to go full time into studying and getting ready for, he's got to take all these prep classes to apply for school. So the past year for him has been simultaneously studying, taking these prep courses, doing the MCAT, applying for school. And so this whole past year, we've been like, school's happening. We don't know where we're going, but we like, that is an intention that we set and that's happening. And I think it's important to share this with you. And I did get his permission before I shared it because I would always do that first. But I wanted to share an update in how that's affecting and what's going on with our living situation right now and how this ties in with seasons, because we actually sold our home about a year ago. We moved up to North Carolina. We've been renting. I mean, it's a gorgeous penthouse apartment. Like it's beautiful, but we've been living that life for about a year. And we've been thinking, okay, we're moving this month now to wherever he's going to be getting into school, and we'll set up shop there and we'll, plan on probably buying a home there, yada, yada. And a couple weeks ago, as it turns out, we got the final no from schools. And a lot of it was timing. A lot of it was us not knowing the process. The applications were sent in when they already had all their people lined up, yada, yada. And so it was interesting because in that moment, it was like, okay, this door is closed for this year. Like we know now he's not going to medical school this year. I think because we've done so much of the inner work, and I want to share this with you because it's easy to share. It'll be very easy to share when he gets into school. Like that'll be a really fun post to do. And I think it's also important to be transparent about it's not always such a linear path. So because we've done the inner work, we were able to say like we had literally left it all on the table. He literally flew out to the final school, like showed up unannounced, flew out to the school. It was like, I'm here. I desire to get into your school next year. What is it going to take for me to get an interview? Like did the whole thing. And that was my only requirement was we leave it all on the field. If it's going to be a no for this year, I am fine with that, but we need to leave it all on the field. We need to know we did everything we could. So he did. He gets on a suit. He flies out to the school. He shows up and they're like, we are so impressed that you flew out, and we've had our students, like we've had our offers in place and everything for months. Like your application just came in too late. So there was actually little to no disappointment. I speak for myself. I really didn't have any disappointment. I don't think he had much either, because it was like he had done everything that he knew how to do. And we did our very best in this year towards this goal. Again, kind of navigating this outside of the normal school system, because he's been out of school for a while. And so with that, it was like, oh, this is interesting. Where are we going to live? What are we going to do? We had decided not to renew our lease on our place. It's beautiful, and it is way too small for 2 adults and a toddler. We got very clear on that several months ago, where we were like, this is a great experience. It has served us in many ways, and we know that we require a lot more space moving forward. So we'd already decided we weren't going to renew our lease, and we'd submitted that to the complex that we're at, but we didn't know where we were going next. And our first instinct was, when we found out we weren't going to be going to school next year, it was like, he wasn't going to be going to school. It was like, where do we want to live? We've got the RV, we've got flexibility, we have a whole year. Where do we want to live? Like, and we started dreaming. We were like, maybe we love the mountains. I love Asheville. I was like, maybe we should go to Asheville for a year. And then we were like, maybe we should go to the beach for a year, because he loves the beach. And we were, playing with that. And we were like, we could just go in the RV and like go on a tour around the country and see everything. Or maybe we'll find a really epic home that we could rent for the year in one of these places. And so we start kind of going down that path. We're looking on Zillow, we're looking for rentals. And it's like I found things I liked. Many of them were I will just say they were astronomical in terms of rent. Like I did a big up level for rent slash, what I used to pay for my mortgage moving into this place. It's all relative. I know it's all relative. It was like celebrity, like Kim Kardashian type of money to live in the places I actually liked. So I was like, on this tight time frame, it's not that I couldn't probably, manifest that if it was in alignment for us, but it didn't feel in alignment. And then we were like, well, maybe we just drive around in the RV and see what's up for a while. And part of that sounded fun. And I started mapping out like places for us to go and there's some really beautiful RV parks throughout the country. So I started mapping out this tour, but then about a day into this process, we started talking about it and we were like, this actually doesn't feel good. It would be fun for a minute, but because he went right back into, okay, I am getting into med school. I am getting into DO school. It's just going to be it's going to be 2023, not 2022. And I'm fully supporting that and all about that. So it's like, he's going to be doing that. He's going to be taking more courses, prepping his application, like improving it, all of that. And I'm still running and growing a company. And for us to do that without having childcare support, for us to do that without having a network and be traveling around kind of living this lifestyle, it actually felt not panicky, but it was close to that. It was like, ooh, I don't think that's going to be a good situation long-term, maybe a couple of weeks, not long-term for where we are. And so we ended up looking at, we've got a support system in place where we are in North Carolina. And we know we don't want to live in the same place specifically, but what would it look like for us to keep our support system and find a different living situation for us? And I will lie, part of me was like, ooh, is this going to stretch and grow me? Because I've been looking at the homes that were like just crazy, crazy rent. And I was like, well, I would grow, I would expand in that, right? And having to figure out how to do that. But it didn't feel good. It didn't feel in alignment. And when we opened up to maybe it's more a year of putting more foundations in place for us, for our family, of having the right support so that I can grow and scale the company I want to, and he can focus on getting into school this year, that felt really good. And as soon as we set that intention, the next day we're on Zillow. We'd already been kind of looking at homes in our area for rent, but there's a new one that literally popped up the day that we set that intention. And it's beautiful. And it's 3 times the size of where we are right now. And the rent's actually even a little bit less, which I wasn't requiring, but it's like, that's fun too. And it was like a boom, boom, boom. See the listing, call the number on it because I had a question. The owner is the one who picks up. She and I hit it off immediately. I go see it the next day. It's perfect. It's like literally the type of home that I affirm that we're going to buy when we get settled in our new place. It's like that home, but it's available for rent. It lines up perfectly, boom, boom, boom. And then within a few days, we've signed the agreement on it, the listing agreement on it, and we'll be able to keep our support system, which for us for this season, it is important. We got very clear. We want that. We require that because there's other areas we're looking to grow in and to have to uproot and create a whole new support system and figure out how to parent and teach Jack and do that while also us doing the things that are important to us as individuals. It didn't feel good. So I share that because one, I've been kind of talking about like what's coming next for us as a family. And I've been talking about med school. And so if you've been following, I wanted to give you an update on that. So we'll be back in that process this year. But then 2, to get really clear on what's that season for you, right? That's what it's all about. And not making your season wrong because you're in winter and somebody else is in summer. Because guess what? Like Bob Proctor said, winter doesn't follow winter. It never follows winter. It goes from winter to spring to summer. So yours is coming. The key is not to fight against it and to know where you're at. So I hope that serves you today. That was really what was on my heart for you. I would love if you send me a DM. I'm at Elise Archer on all social. I want to know what season are you in? I'm here to help support you through that. Again, if you're interested in the consultant certification program and getting on the wait list for that, send me an email, or you can DM me as well. But my email is elise@elisearcher.com. As always, I am so honored if you feel called to share this on your social. This is really just my heart. I love connecting with you in this way on the podcast, and I'm just grateful to have you as a listener. So can't wait to hear your thoughts on this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Check in with what season you're in. Honor it. Don't make yourself wrong for it, but get excited about it and look at how can I maximize this particular season. You'll have incredible results. Lots of love, and I'll see you next week on our next episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.